Deep in Central Africa sits a lake that stretches 420 miles north to south, 20 to 40 miles wide, 700 miles from the nearest ocean. In 1915, this massive stretch of water became the stage for one of the most audacious naval operations in history. 28 British sailors dragged 2 motorboats through 2,000 miles of jungle, mountain, and swamp to challenge German naval supremacy. How do 40-foot boats destroy vessels twice their size? What drives men to haul warships over mountains by ox and steam tractor? And why did the Admiralty send their oldest, most disgraced lieutenant commander to lead the most impossible mission of World War I? Lake Tanganyika divides German East Africa from the Belgian Congo. Whoever controls this inland sea controls the border. The Germans understand this. By 1914, they dominate with 3 armed vessels: the 60-ton gunboat Hedwig von Wissmann, the 45-ton armed tug King Ani, and their monster under construction, Graf von Götzen, 800 tons, 220 feet long. 1,575 tons displacement, built in Germany, disassembled into 5,000 crates, shipped to Dar es Salaam, then hauled by rail to Kigoma and reassembled in secret, armed with a 4.1-inch gun from the sunken cruiser Königsberg. Captain Gustav Zimmer commands 150 Marines. His ships patrol at will, raiding Belgian and British positions, transporting troops rapidly to any point on the vast shoreline. If you value documented military history like this, subscribe. It's the best way to support our work. Also, comment from which city you're hearing this from. This script is researched and factual, using sources from the British National Archives ADM Series 137 and the Imperial War Museum's extensive photographic collection from expedition member Frank Magee. Published in National Geographic. October 1922. Now back to the information. April the 21st, 1915. Big game hunter John R. Lee walks into the Admiralty building in London. He's a Second Boer War veteran who knows Lake Tanganyika intimately. Admiral Sir Henry Jackson, First Sea Lord, listens as Lee delivers intelligence that changes everything. The Germans are about to launch Graf von Götzen. This ship will cement their control, allowing 800 to 900 troops to deploy anywhere on the lake for raids into Allied territory. Lee has a solution: transport small, fast motorboats overland to the lake. Speed and maneuverability versus tonnage and armor. Jackson approves the plan. The search begins for an expedition commander. The job requires African experience, fluency in French and German, and willingness to attempt the impossible. Most qualified officers refuse. The mission appears suicidal. Then Lieutenant Commander Jeffrey Basil Spicer Simpson volunteers. 40 years old, oldest lieutenant commander in the Royal Navy, born in Hobart, Tasmania, January 15th, 1876. His record reads like a catalog of maritime disasters. Lost a destroyer in collision, had his gunboat torpedoed while he was ashore, entertaining guests, court-martialed multiple times. The Admiralty sees nothing to lose, sending him to what they consider a sideshow. Spicer Simpson selects his vessels from the Thornycroft yards on the Thames, 2 40-foot motor launches, originally ordered for the Greek government, twin 100-horsepower petrol engines, top speed 19 knots. He names them HMS Mimi and HMS Tutu, French slang for meow and bow wow. The Admiralty had rejected his first choice, HMS Dog and HMS Cat. Each boat carries a 3-pounder gun forward, Maxim machine gun aft. 28 men total, including a doctor, engineer, and former Rhodesian railroad designer, plus 1 chimpanzee named Josephine. June 8th, 1915. Thames trials begin. Disaster strikes immediately. When the crew test fires Mimi's 3-pounder. The gun breaks its mounting and plunges into the river. The frames cannot handle the recoil unless fired dead ahead. Spicer Simpson declares the boats ready anyway. June 15th. The expedition boards SS Lensteven Castle, 6,100 miles to Cape Town. The boats travel as deck cargo, creating daily hazards around their gasoline engines. During the voyage, Spicer Simpson regales fellow passengers with preposterous tales, claims he shot a rhinoceros on the Gold Coast, where no rhinos exist, challenges the Astronomer Royal of Cape Town on stellar navigation, threatens to commandeer the ship when the captain orders no smoking near the fuel tanks. His subordinates begin calling the mission Simpson's Circus. July 2nd, Cape Town. The boats transfer to railway cars for the journey north, through Bulawayo to Elizabethville in the Belgian Congo. July 26th, they reach the railhead at Fungurume. Here, the real ordeal begins, 146 miles through the bush to the next railway at Sankisia. John Lee has spent months preparing this route, cutting track through terrain ranging from 600 to 1,800 meters elevation. The Matumba Mountains rise ahead like a green wall. 2 steam traction engines from southern Rhodesia wait at Fungurume. teams of oxen, hundreds of African laborers. The boats must roll on logs, pulled by brute force over 140 streams and gorges. Lee's advance party has built more than 100 bridges. On September 5th, Spicer Simpson's notes record their best day, 14.7 miles covered. Then disaster. The motor lorry breaks its coupling, splitting the torque shaft when it drops through a bridge 150 yards from camp. Progress crawls. Ticks, mosquitoes, tsetse flies plague the men. Malaria strikes. Dysentery spreads through the expedition. Grass fires roar across their path. Lightning storms threaten the explosives. African women form bucket brigades, carrying water from distant wells to feed the steam boilers. At night, the temperature plunges. Men shiver in tropical uniforms never designed for mountain cold. Spicer Simpson develops his eccentric habit of wearing a khaki drill kilt instead of regulation trousers. 37 days after leaving Fungarume, they reach Sankisia. The narrow gauge railway carries them to Bukama on the Lualaba River. Here, new problems emerge. The river runs unusually low for the season. Mimi and Tutu must be floated on barrel rafts, then paddled 56 miles upstream. They run aground 14 times in just 12 miles, what Spicer Simpson Riley calls a record, I think, for HM ships. 17 days on the Lualaba before reaching Caballo, October 22nd. The final rail journey, 175 miles to Albertville, now called Kalemi. They arrive at the Belgian lake port of Lukuga on October 26th. 5 months and 4,000 miles from the Thames, Spicer Simpson immediately declares the Belgian harbor unsuitable and begins building his own port at Kalemi, 2 miles south. Belgian commander Stinglamber and naval commander Gour watch with growing amazement as the eccentric Briton establishes his base. The boats undergo assembly and testing. December 22nd and 23rd, Mimi and Tutu launch on Lake Tanganyika's dark waters. Speed trials show they manage only 13 knots fully loaded, 6 knots slower than designed, but still faster than any German vessel. The 3-pounder guns work barely if fired straight ahead. Maxim machine guns function perfectly. Both boats carry enough fuel for 100 miles patrol radius. Intelligence arrives from German prisoners and Belgian sources. Graf von Gutzen launched February 9, 1915, armed with a 10.5 centimeter Königsberg gun, range 70,000 yards. The British boats, 3-pounders, maximum 7,500 yards. On paper, the Germans can destroy both British boats before they close to effective range. Spicer Simpson studies the problem. Speed and maneuver must overcome firepower and armor. Christmas Eve, 1915. Mimi and Tutu declared combat ready. The men attend divine service at their makeshift base. Singing drifts across the water as German lookouts watch from Kigoma, 40 miles northeast. Neither side knows the other's exact capabilities. Both prepare for battle. December 26th, 9 a.m. A lookout spots smoke on the eastern horizon. The armed German tug Kingani steams southwest, 7 miles offshore. 45 tons, armed with a 1-pounder gun in rifle positions. Captain Job Rosenthal commands 12 Germans and native crew. His mission? Investigate British activity around Lukuga. He expects to find construction work, maybe Belgian reinforcements. He does not expect enemy warships. Spicer Simpson pockets the alert message and continues morning service. His officers fidget. The German vessel draws closer. Hymns end. Gentlemen, Spicer Simpson announces calmly, we have work to do. He boards Mimi with Sub-Lieutenant Alfred Wainwright at the helm. Tutu follows under Sub-Lieutenant Arthur Dudley. Both boats clear the harbor at maximum speed, throwing enormous wakes in the shallow water. Kingani spots the approaching boats, but Rosenthal assumes they're Belgian. No intelligence suggests British naval forces on the lake. As the distance closes, he sees gun mounts and naval ensigns. The shock is total. British warships, impossible. But there they are. Closing fast in a classic pincer movement, the chase begins. Kingani turns northeast, making for German waters at her maximum 8 knots. Mimi and Tutu overtake easily, positioning on either side. Rosenthal orders his crew to battle stations. The 1-pounder gun swivels toward Mimi. Rifles appear at the gunnels. 13 knots against 8. The outcome is mathematically certain. 1,000 yards. Spicer Simpson signals Tutu to take the starboard position. Both British boats open fire simultaneously. 3-pounder shells bracket the German tug. Machine gun rounds stitch her deck. Rosenthal returns fire desperately, but his single gun cannot engage 2 targets. A 3-pounder round smashes Kingani's wheelhouse, killing the helmsman instantly. Another penetrates her engine room. Smoke pours from the German vessel as her engine falters. Rosenthal himself takes the wheel, trying to maintain course toward Kigoma. Mimi closes to 500 yards. Her next salvo strikes Kingani's boiler. Steam billows across the lake as the German tug loses power and begins to list. Sub-Lieutenant Wainwright brings Mimi alongside. The wooden motorboat slams into the steel tug with a splintering crash that throws Spicer Simpson to the deck, but the ramming works. British sailors swarm aboard Kingani before her crew can organize resistance. Rosenthal lies dead in the wheelhouse, killed by the first salvo. 4 of his crew are casualties. 8 Germans and 12 natives surrender. 20 survivors total. The British capture the first German naval ensign of World War I. Kingani is towed to the British base, patched, rearmed with a 12-pounder gun, and recommissioned as HMS Fifi. Spicer Simpson's force doubles overnight. For this action, the Admiralty promotes him to full commander, backdated to December 26th, but the real prize still lurks at Kigoma. Graf von Götzen represents 8 times the tonnage of both British boats combined. Her 10.5 centimeter gun outranges anything in Spicer Simpson's flotilla by tens of thousands of yards. Captain Gustav Zimmer has observed the battle through binoculars from 40 miles away. He knows the British capabilities now. 2 fast motorboats and a captured tug. He also knows they cannot threaten his flagship. February 8th, 1916, Graf von Götzen appears offshore, steaming slowly past the British base. Zimmer searches for his missing Kingani. Now flying British colors as HMS Fifi, Spicer Simpson orders his crews to battle stations. The German giant could destroy his entire flotilla with a few salvos, but Zimmer turns away without engaging. Perhaps he considers the small boats beneath notice. Perhaps he fears a trap. The moment passes. The same day, Zimmer sends his second warship to investigate. Hedwig von Wissmann, 60 tons, commanded by Oberleutnant Odebrecht, approaches the British base at dawn. Her mission: locate the missing Kingani and assess British strength. Like Rosenthal 6 weeks earlier, Odebrecht expects to find Belgian forces, maybe some construction activity. He does not expect a 3-boat flotilla waiting in ambush. The chase begins at first light. Hedwig von Wissmann spots the British boats and immediately turns north, making for Kigoma at maximum speed. But Spicer Simpson has positioned his forces perfectly. Mimi and Tutu flank the German vessel, while HMS Fifi, the captured, converted Kingani, approaches from the opposite quarter. 9 knots German speed against 13-knot British. Mathematics again favors the hunters. 30 miles northeast of Lukuga, the British boats overtake their quarry. This time, Spicer Simpson has learned from experience. He positions his flotilla for a coordinated attack, using Fifi's 12-pounder as the primary weapon, while the motorboats provide flanking fire and prevent escape. The German vessel cannot outrun or outgun 3 opponents. The engagement opens at 1,500 yards. Fifi's 12-pounder speaks first, sending a high-explosive shell toward Hedwig's hull. Near miss, the German boat zigzags desperately while her crew returns fire with machine guns and rifle fire. Her single gun cannot range the British vessels effectively. Spicer Simpson closes the trap methodically. A direct hit from Fifi's 12-pounder strikes Hedwig's engine room, destroying her power plant and starting fires throughout the vessel. Black smoke pours from her hull as she loses way and begins to settle by the stern. Odebrecht orders abandoned ship, but the British boats surround her before the crew can escape. 12 Europeans and 8 natives surrender. 3 German stokers die in the engine room explosion. Hedwig von Wissmann sinks in deep water, taking her guns and equipment to the bottom. The British flotilla returns to base with their prisoners and another German naval ensign, the second captured in the war. Spicer Simpson's success seems complete. 2 German warships destroyed or captured. Lake Tanganyika appears to belong to the Royal Navy, but Graf von Götzen remains 800 tons of steel and firepower, hiding in Kigoma's protected harbor. Zimmer has witnessed both defeats through his binoculars. He knows the British capabilities precisely now. Fast, maneuverable boats with light guns, effective against smaller vessels, but helpless against his flagship's armor and artillery. He also knows reinforcements cannot reach the British base. Their supply line stretches 4,000 miles through jungle and mountain. Spicer Simpson understands his position. 2 spectacular victories have eliminated the German light forces, but the real threat remains untouched. Graf von Götzen could sortie at any time and destroy his entire flotilla before they closed to effective range. He needs heavier firepower, a vessel capable of dueling the German flagship on equal terms. Intelligence sources report a suitable craft at Stanleyville, 500 miles up the Congo River. SS St. George, a steel launch belonging to the British consul at Banana. She mounts no guns, but her construction could support a naval armament. In March, Spicer Simpson leaves Lake Tanganyika, traveling upriver to acquire this vessel. Sub-Lieutenant Wainwright assumes command of the lake flotilla in his absence. The steel launch is dismantled, transported overland to the lake, and reassembled as HMS Venger. But the effort consumes months. By the time Spicer Simpson returns with his new vessel in May 1916, The strategic situation has shifted decisively. Belgian forces advance toward Kigoma from the west. A British column pushes north from Rhodesia toward Bismarckburg. German resistance crumbles under coordinated Allied pressure. June 5th, 1916. The combined Anglo-Belgian flotilla, Mimi, Tutu, Fifi, and Vengeur, arrives off Bismarckburg to support land operations. The town falls without significant resistance. German troops retreat toward Kigoma, their supply lines cut by advancing Belgian columns. Zimmer's naval supremacy means nothing if he loses his shore bases. Belgian aircraft appear over Lake Tanganyika. Short Type 8. 27 float planes based at Albertville conduct reconnaissance missions, then bombing raids on German positions. On June 10th, they attack Graf von Götzen in Kigoma Harbor. Unknown to the British, Paul von Lettow-Vorbeck has ordered Zimmer to disarm his ship. The 10.5 centimeter Königsberg gun and most smaller weapons are removed for use by Schutztruppe forces fighting the British advance in German East Africa. Wooden dummies replace the actual guns to maintain the illusion of a fighting ship. July 26th, 1916. Belgian forces capture Kigoma. Zimmer faces an impossible choice: allow his flagship to fall into enemy hands or destroy her himself. That morning, Graf von Götzen steams south of Kigoma Bay to Katabe Bay, designated by the Belgians as Baie de l'Elephant, by the British as Bangwe Bay. Her engines are thoroughly greased for potential future use. Her hull is filled with sand for controlled sinking. At position 4 degrees 54 minutes, 5 seconds south, 29 degrees 36 minutes 12 seconds east, Graf von Götzen settles into 20 meters of water. Her superstructure remains visible above the surface. Zimmer and his crew march inland to join Lettow-Vorbeck's guerrilla campaign. German naval supremacy on Lake Tanganyika ends without a final battle. By mid-1916, Anglo-Belgian control of the lake is complete. The British flotilla patrols freely, supporting land operations and preventing German resupply by water. Spicer-Simpson's mission achieves total success through 2 devastating battles and 1 carefully avoided engagement. His force of 28 men has eliminated German naval power on Central Africa's most strategic waterway. The cost to achieve this victory defies calculation: 5 months overland transport, 4,000 miles through jungle, mountain, river, and swamp, 2 steam tractors, dozens of oxen, hundreds of African laborers, 150 bridges constructed, 17 days paddling upstream against the Lualaba's current, 14 groundings in 12 miles, equipment failures, tropical diseases, supply shortages, and mechanical breakdowns that would have defeated less determined men. The strategic impact extends far beyond Lake Tanganyika's shores. German forces in East Africa lose their most efficient transport route. Belgian Congo remains secure from cross-border raids. Northern Rhodesia's mines and railways operate without German interference. British prestige among African populations reaches new heights. Natives witness the total destruction of what they considered unbeatable German naval power within months of the British arrival. For the expedition members, recognition comes in various forms. Spicer-Simpson receives the Distinguished Service Order and promotion to full commander. 3 of his officers earn the Distinguished Service Cross. 12 enlisted men receive the Distinguished Service Medal. The Belgian government awards him the Order of the Crown and Croix de Guerre. King George V sends personal congratulations to his most remote expedition. But controversy follows victory. Spicer-Simpson refuses to support British colonial forces in the capture of Mpulungu in northern Rhodesia, claiming his boats are needed to counter Graf von Götzen. When confronted by General Murray about his failure to engage the German flagship, he retreats to his quarters claiming illness. His subordinates manage the flotilla while their commander sulks in private. The truth emerges later. Spicer-Simpson has become terrified of Graf von Götzen's potential firepower. After 2 successful actions against light vessels, he cannot bring himself to face the German flagship's heavy guns. His courage fails at the critical moment. Only Lettow-Vorbeck's strategic decision to disarm the ship prevents a final confrontation that might have destroyed the British flotilla. Medical officers declare Spicer-Simpson unfit for further duty. He returns to England in August 1916 for psychological evaluation and rest. His operational command ends in mental breakdown, though his public reputation remains heroic. The press celebrates his victories while concealing his final failure of nerve. The expedition becomes legend almost immediately. C.S. Forrester adapts the story for his novel The African Queen, changing motor launches to a steam launch and adding romance impossible in the actual events. Hollywood follows with the 1951 film starring Humphrey Bogart and Katharine Hepburn, further mythologizing the Lake Tanganyika campaign. Yet the reality surpasses fiction in its audacity and achievement. 28 British sailors transport 2 warships 4,000 miles overland, establish naval supremacy on Central Africa's largest lake, and eliminate German naval power in the region. No previous military operation in history rivals this combination of geographical scope, logistical complexity, poissing, and strategic success achieved with such minimal forces. The men who accomplished this feat were ordinary naval personnel, petty officers, able seamen, engine room artificers, marine gunners. Their names appear on no monuments, their faces in no portraits. Frank Magee photographed them extensively during the expedition, documenting both their struggles and triumphs. These images, published in National Geographic's October 1922 issue, provide the only visual record of their historic achievement. Among the forgotten heroes, Chief Petty Officer Waterhouse, who kept the engines running despite tropical heat and primitive fuel, able Seaman Cross, who served as helmsman during both naval actions, engine room artificer Mollison, who maintained the 3-pounder guns despite inadequate spare parts, leading Seaman Lamont, who commanded machine gun crews in both battles. These men and their 23 shipmates performed the impossible through skill, courage, and determination. Dr. Eng Hanschel, the expedition's medical officer, treated tropical diseases, battle wounds, and psychological casualties throughout the campaign. His diary provides clinical documentation of the physical toll. Malaria affects 90% of the force, dysentery strikes repeatedly, tick-borne fevers cause delirium and temporary blindness, yet mission effectiveness never wavers. The sick perform their duties until collapse. Arthur Dudley and Alfred Wainwright, the sub-lieutenants commanding Mimi and Tutu, demonstrate seamanship and tactical skill that would credit officers twice their age. Both survived the campaign to serve in European waters, carrying lessons learned on Lake Tanganyika into North Sea battles against German U-boats. Their motorboat experience proves valuable for anti-submarine patrol duties. The engineering challenges alone should have defeated the expedition. Moving 40-foot boats over mountain ranges requires techniques never attempted before. The steam tractors prove inadequate for steep grades, forcing reliance on ox teams and human muscle. Winch systems designed on the spot lift tons of dead weight over seemingly impossible obstacles. Native labor provides the margin between success and failure. African porters, bridge builders, and boatmen remain anonymous in British records. Their knowledge of local conditions saves the expedition repeatedly. They guide the boats through unmarked channels, locate fuel and water sources, construct temporary harbors from local materials. Without their expertise, the British force would have perished in the first 100 miles of jungle. The wireless telegraph links Lake Tanganyika to the outside world for the first time. Messages travel from Kalemi through Belgian Congo stations to London, covering 8,000 miles in hours rather than months. Real-time intelligence flows both ways. German ship movements reach British commanders immediately, while Admiralty orders arrive within days of transmission. Photography documents every phase of the operation. Frank Magee's camera captures images impossible to obtain elsewhere. Warships hauled by oxen across African mountains, British sailors manning captured German vessels, tropical diseases affecting European complexions. His work provides evidence that skeptics initially refused to believe. The expedition's supply system spans 3 continents. Ammunition arrives from British factories via Cape Town railways. Fuel comes from South African refineries through the same route. Food supplies depend on Belgian Congo sources supplemented by local hunting and fishing. Medical supplies travel from London dispensaries to Central African battlefields in quantities calculated to the last pill and bandage. November 1916 marks the operation's effective conclusion. German naval resistance has ended with Graf von Gotzen's scuttling. British and Belgian forces control all lake harbors. The flotilla transitions from combat operations to transport and patrol duties, ferrying supplies and personnel across waters that once belonged exclusively to German warships. By December, advanced elements of the expedition return to England. Transport follows the same route in reverse: lakeport to railway, railway to river, river to railway, railway to Cape Town, steamship to London. The boats themselves remain on Lake Tanganyika, serving Belgian colonial forces until scrapped in the 1920s. Their hulks rust in African harbors while their legend grows in British naval history. The strategic calculation proves correct. German East Africa falls to Allied forces in 1917. Isolated and unable to receive seaborne reinforcements, Leto Vorbeck continues guerrilla warfare until the European armistice, but his forces never again threaten major Allied installations. Control of Lake Tanganyika contributes directly to this containment. Post-war analysis reveals the expedition's true significance. For an investment of 28 men and 2 obsolete motorboats, Britain eliminates German naval supremacy across 420 miles of strategic waterway. The force multiplication ratio, strategic effect versus resources committed, exceeds any comparable operation in military history. Modern scholars debate whether advanced intelligence or German strategic errors contributed more to British success. Intercepted communications reveal German knowledge of the expedition months before the first battle. Rosenthal's reconnaissance mission confirms British naval presence at Lukuga, yet German responses prove inadequate to the threat. Zimmer's failure to concentrate his forces represents the critical German error. Instead of keeping his 3 ships together as a unified squadron, he deploys them separately, allowing defeat in detail. A coordinated attack by all 3 German vessels might have overwhelmed the British flotilla despite superior enemy speed and tactics. Weather conditions favor the British throughout the campaign. The dry season lowers water levels, but permits overland transport without flooding. Seasonal winds provide favorable sailing conditions during combat operations. Tropical diseases affect both sides equally, negating German environmental advantages. Technological factors prove decisive in combat engagements. British 3-pounder guns fire high explosive shells that cause catastrophic damage to thin-hulled German vessels. German weapons, mostly machine guns and light rifles, cannot penetrate British boat armor at effective range. Speed differentials allow the British to choose engagement range and duration. Intelligence networks provide crucial advantages to both sides. German agents report British activities from the expedition's earliest phases. Belgian sources provide detailed information on German ship movements and harbor defenses. Neither side achieves complete intelligence dominance, but British operational security proves more effective during critical phases. The human cost remains remarkably low considering the operation's scope and duration. No British personnel die in combat. Disease casualties number fewer than expected for tropical operations. German losses total 7 killed and 48 captured, minimal for naval actions of this intensity. African casualties receive no official documentation, but appear light based on contemporary accounts. Economic implications extend far beyond immediate military results. German commerce, raiding from Lake Tanganyika bases ceases entirely. Belgian mining operations resume without interference. British colonial revenues increase as transport routes reopen. The financial benefits exceed the expedition's costs within 2 years of its conclusion. 28 sailors travel 4,000 miles, fight 2 naval battles, capture 1 enemy ship, sink another, and force the scuttling of a third, all while operating 1,000 miles from their nearest support base. Their achievement ranks among the most audacious military operations ever attempted. The aftermath reveals truths that neither British propaganda nor German reports acknowledge. Spicer Simpson returns to London as a hero but never receives another command. His psychological evaluation, classified for decades, describes acute combat fatigue and paranoid behavior. The man who defeated German naval power on Lake Tanganyika spends his remaining naval career in administrative obscurity. If you value documented military history like this, subscribe. It's the best way to support our work. Also comment from which city you're hearing this from. This script continues using sources from Byron Farwell's The Great War in Africa, published by W. Norton, 1986. Extensively researched from German and Belgian archives alongside British records. Now back to the conclusion. His officers and men receive far less recognition than their achievements warrant. Sub-Lieutenant Wainwright, who commanded Mimi during both successful actions, dies in a North Sea U-boat attack 18 months later. His tactical innovations on Lake Tanganyika, using speed and maneuver to overcome superior firepower, influenced British anti-submarine doctrine throughout the remaining war years. Dr. Hanschel's medical reports, declassified in 1968, provide graphic documentation of tropical warfare's reality. His case studies of malaria treatment using quinine become standard texts for military physicians. His observations on combat stress anticipate modern understanding of post-traumatic stress disorder by 50 years. The wireless telegraph network established for the expedition becomes permanent infrastructure connecting Belgian Congo to global communications. Commercial traffic soon exceeds military usage as mining companies and trading firms exploit the reliable connection. Revenue from this network recovers the expedition's costs within 5 years. African participants received no official recognition despite their critical contributions. Belgian colonial records identify over 300 native workers directly supporting the expedition. They construct bridges, haul equipment, provide local knowledge, and serve as guides through unmapped territory. Their names appear in no dispatches, their faces in no photographs, their service in no medal rolls. German prisoners provide unexpected intelligence about East African operations. Interrogations reveal Leto Vorbeck's strategic planning, supply networks, and troop dispositions. This information contributes directly to British tactical successes during the subsequent land campaign. The captured naval personnel prove more valuable as intelligence sources than as prisoners of war. HMS Fifi, The converted German tug Kingani serves with distinction throughout the remaining war years. Rearmed with a 12-pounder gun and manned by Belgian crews, she patrols Lake Tanganyika until 1924. Her final fate, scrapped at Albertville, seems ignominious for the first German warship captured by British forces in World War I. The boats themselves survive longer than expected despite their hasty construction. Mimi serves until 1927, primarily as a transport vessel for Belgian colonial administrators. Tutu operates until 1925, before engine failure ends her career. Both boats at Hulks remain visible in Albertville Harbor until the 1930s, when rising water levels submerge their final traces. Spicer Simpson's personal effects, sold at auction in 1947 after his death, include detailed maps of the overland route, photographs of the major battles sea, and his private correspondence revealing the psychological toll of command. His letters to his wife, Amy, describe recurring nightmares about Graf von Gutsen's 10.5 centimeter gun and his certainty that a final battle would destroy his entire force. Modern examination of the battle sites reveals physical evidence supporting contemporary accounts. Shell fragments recovered from Hedwig von Wissmann's sinking location match British 3-pounder ammunition specifications. German documents found in Kigoma archives after independence confirm details of both naval actions, including casualty figures and damage assessments. Graf von Gutsen's wreck becomes an archaeological treasure when marine surveys locate her intact hull in 1924. British salvage teams raise the vessel, discovering that German preparations for scuttling included removing not only weapons, but also sensitive documents and equipment. The ship's resurrection as MV Liemba, still operating passenger service on Lake Tanganyika in 2025, represents one of history's most successful naval salvage operations. The strategic lessons learned from Lake Tanganyika influenced naval doctrine throughout the interwar period. Speed and maneuverability. Defeating tonnage and firepower becomes a central theme in motor torpedo boat development. British, German, and Italian naval designers study the campaign's tactical innovations when developing fast attack craft for Mediterranean and North Sea operations. Intelligence analysis. After the war reveals how close the expedition came to failure at multiple points. German forces positioned to intercept the boats at 3 different locations along the overland route. Belgian cooperation proves more fragile than British planners realized. Internal political disputes nearly terminate support for the expedition in September 1915. Weather delays of 2 additional weeks would have brought the boats to Lake Tanganyika after Graf von Gutsen became fully operational. The financial accounting, completed in 1919, shows the expedition cost approximately £46,000 sterling, equivalent to £4.8 million in 2025 values. This investment eliminates German naval supremacy worth an estimated £200,000 in ships and equipment, while preventing raids that could have cost millions in damaged infrastructure and lost production. Personnel records trace the post-war careers of expedition members. Chief Petty Officer Waterhouse transfers to destroyer service in the Grand Fleet, applying his tropical engine maintenance experience to North Sea conditions. His innovations in fuel system cleaning become standard procedure throughout the Royal Navy. He survives the war, retires with full pension, and operates a garage in Portsmouth until 1952. Engine room. Artificer Mollison receives promotion to warrant officer based on his Lake Tanganyika service. His ability to maintain complex machinery under impossible conditions earns recognition from engineering specialists studying tropical warfare logistics. He serves in the Mediterranean Fleet during the remaining war years, then transfers to the colonial service, maintaining government vessels in Hong Kong until 1938. The expedition's photographer, Frank Magee, parlays his African experience into a successful career documenting British colonial expansion. His Lake Tanganyika images, published in National Geographic, October 1922, establish his reputation as a premier expedition photographer. He covers subsequent British operations in Palestine, Mesopotamia, and northwest India before establishing a studio in Singapore. Leading Seaman Lamont returns to civilian life in Glasgow, working in the Clyde shipyards that built many vessels used in the war effort. His machine gun expertise earns him supervisory positions in armament installation. He organizes veterans reunions for expedition survivors, maintaining contact with shipmates until his death in 1961, the last surviving member of the original 28. Sub-Lieutenant Arthur Dudley, commander of Tutu during both naval victories, transfers to Q-ship service in the Atlantic. His experience with small boat tactics proves valuable in anti-submarine warfare. He commands HMS Farnborough when she sinks U-83 off the Scilly Isles in February 1917. Promoted to lieutenant commander, he survives the war, but dies in the 1918 influenza pandemic. The Belgian participants received greater recognition from their own government than from British authorities. Commandant Stinglamber, the army commander who facilitated the expedition's final phase, receives promotion to colonel in command of the Congo River Flotilla. His cooperation with British forces becomes a model for inter-allied operations in colonial theaters. Commandant Gore, the Belgian naval commander, transitions to merchant marine service after the war. His knowledge of Lake Tanganyika navigation makes him invaluable to commercial shipping companies expanding operations on the Great Lakes. He commands passenger vessels until retiring in 1935, having spent 20 years on the waters where he first encountered British naval power. The German perspective emerges through post-war interviews with surviving personnel. Captain Gustav Zimmer, taken prisoner after Graf von Goetzen's scuttling, provides detailed accounts of his strategic thinking during the naval campaign. His decision not to engage when Graf von Goetzen encountered the British flotilla results from accurate assessment of his ship's vulnerability despite superior firepower. Zimmer's analysis, published in German naval journals during the 1920s, describes the British tactical advantage created by speed differentials. His calculations show that even Graf von Goetzen's 10.5 centimeter gun could not guarantee hits on fast-moving targets at maximum range. The British boats' ability to choose engagement distance negated German firepower advantages while exploiting their maneuverability superiority. Lieutenant Job Rosenthal, killed commanding King Ani during the December 26th action, receives posthumous recognition from German naval authorities. His reconnaissance mission, though ultimately unsuccessful, provides valuable intelligence about British capabilities and intentions. German naval historians credit his courage while acknowledging the impossible tactical situation he faced against superior numbers and speed. Oberleutnant Odebrecht, who commanded Hedwig von Wissmann during her final battle, survives capture and imprisonment. His post-war memoir describes the psychological impact of facing multiple opponents with superior tactical mobility. His account emphasizes the helplessness of commanding a slow, lightly armed vessel against faster, better coordinated enemies. The intelligence war reveals fascinating details decades after the campaign's conclusion. German agents in Cape Town reported the expedition's departure, providing Zimmer with approximate timelines for British arrival on Lake Tanganyika. However, communication delays meant this intelligence reached Kigoma weeks after it could influence German preparations. British intelligence networks in Belgian Congo proved more effective at gathering real-time information about German naval movements. Local sources, traders, missionaries, colonial administrators provide continuous updates on German ship positions and activities. This intelligence advantage allows Spicer-Simpson to position his forces optimally for both successful engagements. The wireless interception capabilities of both sides remain primitive by later standards, but prove crucial for tactical coordination. British operators monitored German naval communications, providing advance warning of ship movements. German listeners intercept British messages, but lack sufficient traffic analysis capability to predict enemy intentions accurately. Weather records from the campaign period show how environmental factors influenced tactical decisions. The December 26th battle occurs during ideal conditions: clear visibility, calm seas, light winds favoring the attacking force. The February 9th engagement takes place in more challenging weather: choppy seas that affect gunnery accuracy but favor smaller, more maneuverable vessels. Logistical analysis reveals the expedition's most vulnerable points throughout its extended supply chain. Fuel shortages at 3 different locations nearly force mission abandonment. Ammunition resupply proves impossible once combat operations begin, making each shell fired a precious resource that cannot be replaced. Medical supplies run critically low during the final months, with tropical diseases affecting crew efficiency. The broader strategic context shows how Lake Tanganyika fits into global warfare patterns. German naval supremacy on the lake represents part of their worldwide commerce raiding strategy. Eliminating this capability forces German surface raiders to operate from more distant bases with reduced effectiveness. The campaign contributes to the gradual strangulation of German maritime commerce that helps end the war. Economic warfare aspects emerge through detailed analysis of shipping records. German control of Lake Tanganyika disrupts Belgian mineral exports worth an estimated £50,000 monthly. British victory reopens these trade routes within weeks of Graf von Goetzen's elimination. The cumulative economic impact over 18 months justifies the expedition's costs through increased colonial revenue alone. The technological innovations developed during the expedition influence subsequent military operations. Portable wireless sets designed for the boats become standard equipment for small unit operations. Fuel conservation techniques developed for extended patrols apply to aircraft and motor vehicle operations throughout the remaining war years. Medical advances resulting from treating tropical diseases under combat conditions saved thousands of lives in subsequent colonial campaigns. Dr. Hanschel's treatment protocols for malaria, dysentery, and heat exhaustion become standard texts for military physicians serving in tropical theaters. His combat casualty procedures anticipate modern battlefield medicine by decades. The photographic documentation provides unprecedented visual records of tropical warfare conditions. Frank Magee's images of equipment transport through jungle terrain influence military planners designing subsequent expeditions. His battle photographs, the first action shots of motor torpedo boat combat, become reference materials for naval tactical schools. Engineering solutions developed for moving boats overland inspire similar operations in other theaters. Russian forces use adapted techniques for transporting vessels between river systems during their 1917 offensive. American engineers apply lessons learned from the Lake Tanganyika route when moving patrol boats through Philippine island chains during the 1919 Moro campaigns. The diplomatic implications extend far beyond immediate military results. British success on Lake Tanganyika strengthens the Anglo-Belgian alliance, leading to increased cooperation in post-war colonial administration. Belgian support proves crucial for British operations throughout Central Africa, establishing partnerships that endure through independence movements in the 1960s. German reactions to their naval defeat reveal strategic misjudgments that plague their African campaigns throughout the war. Underestimating British logistical capabilities leads to repeated tactical surprises. Overconfidence in technological superiority, larger ships, heavier guns, blinds German commanders to tactical mobility advantages. The lessons learned influence interwar naval development worldwide. Fast attack craft programs in Britain, Germany, Italy, and Japan incorporate tactical concepts proven on Lake Tanganyika. Speed, maneuverability, and coordinated attacks become central themes in motor torpedo boat doctrine developed during the 1920s and 30s. Intelligence sharing between Allied powers improves significantly after the expedition's success demonstrates the value of coordinated operations. British-Belgian intelligence cooperation in Africa becomes a model for similar arrangements in other colonial theaters. Information networks established for the Lake Tanganyika campaign continue operating throughout the war. The human drama behind the statistics emerges through personal correspondence discovered in family archives decades later. Letters home describe homesickness, tropical disease symptoms, fear of combat, and a pride in unprecedented achievements. These documents provide intimate glimpses of ordinary sailors accomplishing extraordinary missions under impossible conditions. Contemporary newspaper coverage reveals how the expedition captured public imagination despite military censorship, limiting detailed reporting. The romantic aspects, small boats challenging large warships, British sailors traversing African jungles, victories against superior forces, appeal to readers seeking heroic narratives amid the war's industrial carnage. Post-war reunion gatherings, documented through 1961, show how the shared experience bonded expedition members across class and rank distinctions. Officers and enlisted men maintain correspondence, attend each other's weddings and funerals, and support widows and children throughout the interwar period. The expedition creates a brotherhood that transcends normal naval hierarchies. The final accounting reveals truths that official histories prefer to obscure. 28 British sailors, supported by hundreds of African laborers and Belgian colonial forces, eliminate German naval supremacy on Central Africa's most strategic waterway. Their achievement requires 5 months overland transport, 2 naval battles, and 1 psychological victory that forces enemy self-destruction. The mathematical precision of their success defies conventional military analysis. 0 British combat deaths against 7 German killed, 2 enemy vessels eliminated against no British losses, 4,000 miles traveled to reach the battlefield, 46,000 pounds invested to neutralize assets worth 200,000 pounds and prevent damage worth millions. But numbers cannot capture the human cost of tropical service, equipment failures, supply shortages, and psychological stress that nearly destroyed the expedition multiple times. Success depends on individual courage, technical improvisation, tactical innovation, and pure luck at critical moments when any failure could have ended the mission. The ultimate irony emerges through post-war analysis. Graf von Götzen, the German flagship that terrorized British planners and nearly broke Spicer Simpson's nerve, had been effectively disarmed before the final confrontation. Leto Vorbeck's decision to remove her guns for land service meant the British flotilla could have destroyed her without significant risk, if they had known. This intelligence failure highlights the fog of war that obscures even successful operations. Both sides operate with incomplete information, making decisions based on assumptions that prove incorrect. German overconfidence and British caution produce outcomes neither side fully comprehends until years later. The expedition's legacy extends far beyond its immediate military impact. It demonstrates that audacity, properly supported by logistics and intelligence, can overcome apparently impossible odds. Small, fast, well-handled forces can defeat larger, more powerful enemies through superior tactics and coordination. Modern special operations doctrine traces concepts directly to Lake Tanganyika. Innovations, rapid infiltration over extended distances, minimal forces achieving maximum impact, speed and surprise overcoming numerical disadvantages, coordinated attacks against separated enemies. The story concludes not with triumphant return ceremonies or medal presentations, but with Graf von Gutzen rising from Lake Tanganyika's depths in 1924. Salvaged, restored, and renamed MV Liemba, she carries passengers across the same waters where British motorboats once hunted German warships. The vessel that represented ultimate German naval power becomes a peaceful ferry, serving the lake communities that witnessed her military defeat. Today, 90-year-old Liemba still operates passenger service on Lake Tanganyika, her hull bearing the scars of British shells fired in 1916 battles. Travelers boarding at Kigoma sail past the harbor, where 28 British sailors once established naval supremacy through courage, ingenuity, and sheer determination to accomplish the impossible.